Okay, so we only have an hour actually because I actually have a meeting for work at 2. So I'm gonna try to cram in as much as possible. If you guys need me to go a little slower, let me know. If you have questions, feel free to pop them in. I'm gonna have a Q&A session, hopefully at the end for things that I didn't cover and that you guys would really like me to talk about. Okay, so number one, let's go through this. Reasons to establish your brand. Exposure. You're creating free exposure for yourself. Second, cash flow, passive income. One of the hardest things for a creative, for an artist, is to have financial freedom. And I don't think everyone always understands exactly what that means. It doesn't mean that you get rich quick or suddenly you want to just get rich and become a millionaire. Financial freedom is just a state where you don't have to worry about finances stopping you doing something, and that sometimes applies to people who are stuck in a job because that's their only financial income. And so it becomes harder to build your own products, build your own brand, market yourself when you're constantly only looking at that one job for income. Um, The whole point of getting passive income is building for your future, building for money to be a constant source of flow, less stress, more options for you to create whatever it is you want to do. If that's merchandise, if that's digital products, if you want to become a streamer, that's huge right now, TikTok artist, I don't know. So many options, right? And it's becoming more and more available for creatives, especially using social media. And not a lot of people talk about that. Another reason why I think establishing your brand is so important is because as we're in the age of social media, independent artists is becoming more of a thing, right? So before it used to kind of be like you would attach yourself to what studio or project you worked on. Like, oh, I worked at Disney, blah, blah, blah. I'm a Disney artist. I worked at DreamWorks. I'm a DreamWorks artist. Or I worked on this game. While those are still important, right? Those are definitely very good experiences. You also have people now that are like fresh out of college or maybe didn't even go to college. They just did the convention circuit a lot. I have friends like that who make a great living just doing the convention circuit and having an online store and being able to live where they want, near family, having a house because they don't have to live somewhere that's as expensive as LA. And at the end of the day, this is a way for you to gain a bit of control and added benefits by putting your work out into the world. I will say though, I don't always think this is the right path for everyone. Some people don't like being independent. Some people don't like handling everything themselves. I have friends who are extremely comfortable just working for a studio and that's it. When they go home, they do other things. And that's totally fine, right? It really depends on who you are as a person and what you're hoping to bring into the world. Some people, their focus is family life, or their focus is job and home is separate, which is totally fine. Just to give everyone a little bit of background, I've been doing this for 7 years now. I started out doing conventions to pay for college. Actually, it was at the time, a quick way for me to just get a little cash flow so that I could buy the programs. I could buy the art supplies that were super, super expensive for college students. Um, and through those conventions, I ended up making a lot of friends that have the same mindset where we want to build something out of ourselves. We want to build something where our name is a little bit more established and our name isn't just connected to, say, DreamWorks or Disney or the things I've done, but you as a person, you as an artist, you as a brand. Okay, so let me make sure I have all my notes correctly. Um, Okay, great. So making sure everything's good. Seems like everyone's getting the right advice. Um, I giving you guys a little bit of recap history. I did anime conventions for 3 or 4 years, from 2011 to 2015. Actually, 2012 to 2015, because that was when I was in college and up in Atlanta. I did mostly East Coast conventions, and I did AWA one time, I think. I can't remember. Not AWA, Anime Expo. I did one time. And a lot of those friends now have their own brands and have their own online shops. They're doing pretty good, bar the fact that no one can go to conventions right now because of COVID. But that's why it's good to establish your brand and your online presence. Yes, I am from Atlanta. I was raised in Atlanta for most of my childhood, and then I went international for a little bit. I went to college at Savannah College of Art and Design, but if you want more info on that, you can come to my Saturday talk because I don't think everyone has to go to college, period. I learned more outside of college. Okay, so let's talk about. I want to have this discussion in little bits so that it's useful for everyone. The first point I'm going to start with is entry level. These are people who, if you don't know where to start, if you don't know where to begin, how to even present yourself, this is the point I'm going to start with. For people who are maybe a little bit more experienced and now want to know about pricing, marketing, keeping up with everything, we're going to talk about that at a different section later on. So, entry level points to establish your brand, testing the water. I am a person who highly believes in low risk when you're starting out, because let's face it, most of us starting out, when you want to establish your brand, we're not going to be rich. We're not going to have a ton of cash on the side. We're going to be trying to make $200, $300 work and establish that. And I think that's totally possible. What I first started with was group events, online events, Zion events. I don't know if doujinshi events are still a thing, but doujinshi events, Illustrator events, these things are great because usually there's a lot of people all involved in it, right? And it's not necessarily uh, gonna make you shine the brightest usually. It's usually like the collective as a whole is great. So exposure is middle ground, but that's kind of what you want when you're starting out. Because if you make a mistake, if you don't do something really well, it's okay. Not a lot of people are gonna notice, you know? You're not going to be uh ripping anyone off or having a lot of issues on your hands. And this also gives you some experience on how to portray yourself, how to market yourself, how to connect with other artists, how to connect with other event coordinators, um, and learning how to talk with them, because that's actually quite important. And if you have access to college events as well, they are extremely low risk because usually those event spaces are already provided for you. You just have to show up, show your work, and you get to talk to your peers and classmates and get a lot of more personal uh, responses, I feel like. Okay, so that's number one, participating in events. Number two is if you feel like you have a grasp on showing at events or you have a little bit of uh, comfort zone to table either by yourself or with a friend, I highly recommend physical booths, tabling to present yourself. Conventions, gallery shows around the area usually do small events where you can go and present yourself, talk to your customers, get to know your audience, right? Someone asked, where do you find these events? How do you keep up with finding these events? So, usually it can either be word of mouth or it can start to be like find things that you're interested in. At the time, I was really interested in anime and fan art and trying to find other people like me, right? On Tumblr, whatsoever. And you'll kind of start hearing about like people being like, "Oh my gosh, there's this fan meetup at Anime or Anime Expo," or There's a event at Anime Weekend Atlanta, and you can start getting a list of events that people seem to really like that have the same mindset as you. I know usually you can also do quick searches. I know there's like Society of Illustrators. I think there's always little mm, like group events per city. I don't know how widespread Society of Illustrators is. I know there's one in Atlanta. I know there's one uh, in California and etc. So once you start looking at these events, you can start compiling a list. If you're not in the US, that gets a little tricky too. I have a couple advices there because I lived internationally in Shanghai for 7 years. And besides just finding events, language was a barrier because I can speak fluent Chinese, but or Mandarin, but not to the point where I feel comfortable like with business jargon or talking about like actual production stuff. That stuff I'm not used to talking about in Mandarin. Um, let me see. But there were still events that I could go to in Shanghai. There were still anime events. There were still illustrator events. Um, Assuming that you grew up kind of internationally and that wherever you live is a language you're comfortable with, that might be easier. Finding other artists in your area, either through Instagram, through Twitter, through Tumblr, and seeing what kind of group meetups there are, possibly. It may be a little hard at first, but I assure you, once you start looking for them, they start popping up a lot more than you think. Um, Let me see. Yeah, so someone's asking about booth prices. Booth prices always vary. And my advice is big events don't always work well for starting out artists. When I first did Anime Expo, it was huge, right? And I paid a lot for a small artist alley booth. I want to say like 500, 600 USD, I think. It's a little blurry now, but I remember it was a lot at the time. And I've seen events like Comic-Con where booths are like 1,000, 2,000. It's crazy. And I've noticed from personal experience at those events, people are going to the big artists. There's too many artists, small artists that are just starting out get overlooked a lot, and you're really struggling. And sometimes it's an ego blow um, if things don't work out the same way. So I actually highly recommend when you're starting out to look for small events, small, low risk events. Um, yes, conventions with lower costs is way better. Um, because on to the next topic, physical merchandise. Uh, some people also can do digital merchandise for online, but I think for now I'm just going to talk about physical merchandise because that's usually generally where people have problems. And someone asked how to get more online exposure if you don't have access to these events. So I have friends who don't live maybe in popular areas, like in a small town in China where you don't have big convention halls, you don't have artist colleges or artist events, and you have to like take a train to get to the nearest city, big city, right? And that's not feasible. That's where social media becomes a really big uh, helping hand because more than ever, people who don't have physical access to places now have online access. And it's always going to be hard when you're starting out, regardless of if you have physical access to conventions. It's just how it is. You have to just start getting yourself out there slowly but surely. It took maybe two years when I was starting out for someone to really start recognizing me. I was overshadowed a lot during my first 2 years, and that taught me how not to market myself, honestly. Um, so one thing is starting Instagram, make sure your accounts actually have artwork. Don't do a personal account, do accounts that have artwork. Start posting about things that you're potentially thinking about selling, or artwork, work in progresses, etc. That's the general good spot to start if you really, really don't know where to start. Instagram and Twitter. Okay, physical merchandise. When you're just starting out, low cost, low risk. People sometimes go high cost or high risk, high reward. Yes, but you don't want to take that risk when you don't know your audience. You don't want to take that risk when you don't know if you're going to really sell the first time around. Um, just because it is a big event does not always mean it is a big success. Um, and I think a rule of thumb is generally your first event is kind of shit. I don't know anyone whose first event was like amazing. It was always a learning process. And so because of that, lower cost is better, in my opinion. These are going to be things like prints. These are going to be things like stickers. Some people really want to do enamel pins. Some people really want to do like clothing, tote bags. Those are all what I consider high risk, because the amount of money you have to use to produce them is very high. And there's usually a minimum quantity that you have to reach before you can produce them at a feasible price. And that could be anywhere from 100 items to 500 items. That's not smart. That's not feasible. When you're talking about starting out, you should be doing prints with 25 like quantity, like 25 pieces. 50 pieces if you really feel comfortable, but I've never sold 50 pieces at a starting event from the get-go. 25 is really safe, really nice. There's very low out of pocket. If you're looking at prints, it's like could be less than $1. That's $25 and you have 25 prints. Um, let's see, stickers are great. Sometimes people go a little heavy-handed with stickers when they're just starting out, and you see people with table spaces and they have a ton of stickers, right? They have a ton of stickers. I think spreading yourself too thin when you're just starting out can be detrimental to the artist, because people then start nitpicking and choosing like, oh, you have a sticker for $1. I don't want to buy a print for $10. I just want a sticker. And then people just grab a bunch of stickers, and then someone's come to your booth. Um, but they've left with only $3 worth of stickers. Which, yes, someone's saying that I love stickers. I love stickers too, but you can't only sell low cost things. You have to make sure that when people come to your booth, when you're starting out, that you can actually afford to do the next event. That's just basic business, right? You want to make sure that you break even for the next event. Breaking even means that you've earned back your production costs. You've earned back your table costs. It's not enough just to be like, I'm at this event and I'm happy because I'm a part of it and I'm out there. That's not a good business mindset in my opinion, um, right? Because you're going in with a very appreciative mindset, which is great, that you're a part of it. But if you're trying to establish your brand for the next upcoming events, you want to make sure you get profit so that you can start actually producing more more products than just stickers. Stickers are absolutely great, right? I love stickers. But if you're only selling stickers, sometimes it gets a little hard to expand out like, okay, now I want to do plush toys, and you have a production cost of like $3,000, $4,000. I'm not saying people shouldn't do stickers, because I'm seeing some people who are like, I love stickers. Why not stickers? I think stickers are great, but we're talking about building yourself towards financial independence, which means that you have higher profit items and low profit items. Low profit items are great because they are things that people can buy large quantities of, stick on like, on their fridge, on their car, on journals and all that. But you also want to have a couple of higher price items. And those can be posters, those can be really high quality prints. Um, some people are starting to ask about manufacturers. I'll get into that at the end for Q&A because it becomes a little, there's a lot of information there. Um, 25 prints per illustration, depending on the size of the prints, yes. Uh, Honestly, when I start out, all my prints right now are 8 by 8. They're small, right? But I print them on high quality watercolor cold press paper. So they look almost identical to my actual original drawings. I've actually confused my originals with the prints before. Um, so even this though, when you're starting out, I don't think you should go in expecting to sell a ton. If you sell out of 25, that's great. Next event, you can do 50, but that's how you know which your best sellers are. If you're starting out, you don't know your audience, you don't know your best sellers. It would be a little overkill to have 50 of every single print or to have 100 of every single print. My printer is Nonstop Printer. They're based in LA, but if you don't have access to US or LA, I think Catprint is the go-to for most people right now. Catprint, they also have a watercolor, 25 prints of each piece. Sorry, if I wasn't clear. It's 25 prints of each piece. Yes, Catprint. I'm pretty sure Catprint does international. Someone might have to check on that. Uh, okay, and merchandising. So once you kind of figure out a base plan, uh, I'm not super organized, but it's always good to have actually a checklist and figuring out what your budget actually is. Like figuring out, okay, my table cost me this much, and factoring in, like, okay, my event preparations cost me this much, and my manufacturing for my products cost me this much. That's already a lot of money that you have to take into account for. I think it's totally possible to do an event with 100, 200 uh, dollars, but people sometimes don't take into account the table cost or the cost for actually setting up your table or your physical space. You can't just say, okay, I printed this much, that's my budget. No, it's everything in in combination. That means business cards. If you printed business cards to pass out, that actually goes into your cost. You're not selling it, but that's a cost. Hotel and transport, exactly. Travel costs. Time is very essential. Time is money. If you have more time, that's great, but it is money and it becomes a resource. Um, Also, because we're getting into a second area that I want to talk about, besides physical merchandise, I'm going to talk about self-made merchandise as well. Because when I started out, I wanted to be as cheap as possible. So I made stickers at home, I made prints at home. Um, okay, things to ask yourself when you're checking out your budget. Uh, What do you have access to yourself? Can you make your own merch? When you're starting out, making your own merch is great. What is your budget? Same thing as I said before. Supplier or self-made? Self-made is absolutely cost effective when you're starting out. You lose a little quality. Okay, everyone loses a little quality making it at home. There's no workaround with that. Um, Quality is not going to be 100% when you're doing self-made, but if you're smart and careful, quality can still be uh, very, very good. Da, da, da. Yeah, someone's saying in here, I wouldn't buy from a printer from the jump as it can be 200, 500 USD investments. Absolutely right. If you have a printer yourself, if you have an inkjet printer yourself, you can actually print on demand. Because say for your event, you're prepping, you can print 25 then. Or you could actually just print 10 and see how well those do because you're in control of your output. Um, and if you're printing from home, you can uh, invest in slightly nicer, either photo paper, glossy, matte. I personally like matte. You can invest in slightly thicker, like cardstock paper, depending on your printer, you got to check your printer. There's a lot of options now for affordable printers. If you already have some at home, make use of that. If you're not really sure about print quality, have some friends come over, check them out. Maybe not have friends come over right now because COVID, but send some things to your friends. See if this is something that they would be interested in. Your best resource when you're starting out is having your friends test products for you, having your friends give you unapologetic critiques, because then you know from an eye of a buyer if this is something that people want to spend money on. Because one of the things that I I look for or I put forth with my audience is I want to give them the best possible quality with what I have, even when I didn't have a lot of money. So I wanted to make sure if I did a print, it was something that they would really enjoy. If I was selling online, it was something that I would write a little like hand note on it, or I would sign, or I would do something a little extra just to be like, I really want them to enjoy the experience of having this. Because I think if you're spending money on an artist, right, that's an investment. They're investing in you. Whether it be a one-time investment, whether it be a multiple, they come back multiple times, but you have to treat your audience like they are your investors. They are important. They are basically what's going to move your brand forward. And so you have to give them the same quality and respect that you would hope that someone would give you when you're selling or when you're buying from someone. Uh, da, da, da. Let me see. Yes, there are a lot of wide format printers. Da, da, da. Let me see. Yes, if your friends tend to be kinder than a general audience, see if you can find people who will give you honest opinions. Or if you have social media, ask some of your followers, ask some people that are kind of in the same groups. Uh, I think it also depends on your friend groups because, man, my friends are kind of ruthless sometimes. They'll tell me if I'm trash. Okay, so general rules of thumb, break even at the first event. This is always what I strive for. Um, that's why it's low cost when you start out. That's why you should put it at a low cost. It doesn't seem like a lot when you're doing it, but I think like say like okay, you've done all these prints, you've bought the paper for at home, you've done your own printing, you've got business cards. I would not recommend doing business cards at home. It's just not fun. It's not good quality, and you can get large quantities of business cards for a lot cheaper than you can prints. So business cards, depending on what you can do, right? Um, that's already going to be an upfront cost of possibly $300, $500. And if you're just starting out and you're doing small prints and you're selling each print at $10, that's 50 sales you have to make, 30 sales you have to make. That's a high number. Um, Let me see. Yeah, that's a high number. So you want to make sure that it's a number you're comfortable feeling like you would be able to hit. Let me see. Da, da, da. Yes, Moo cards are great. I actually used Moo when I first started. Now I use Nonstop. I use Moo double-sided, soft touch velvet cards. They're a little bit more expensive, so don't don't always go with what I say. And I like really thick cardstock. I don't like it when business cards bend because I'm constantly throwing business cards in my wallet. I'm constantly like putting them in between things because when you're on the go, it's kind of hard just to have like a business card holder. Da, da, da. Okay, breaking even at your first event. Remind me if I'm skipping over stuff because I'm trying to go as fast as possible. We only have 30 minutes left. Merchandising, pricing. When you're pricing your products, they should be at least 3 times the production cost. This doesn't apply to prints because I think prints can go a lot higher just because of how affordable production costs are. Prints are usually going to be, depending on your size, between 50 cents to $3. $3 if you're going like poster size. Um, and because of that, it doesn't make sense that you only sell it three times the price. Prints, I think when you're at physical events, it's good to see what other people are pricing it at, um, because it's also very based on what location you are. There are certain locations where you can actually charge more for prints. There are some locations where maybe you shouldn't charge as much as people in LA are charging because it's just not feasible. And if you charge the same, people might not want to buy because everyone else is charging way less. That is a problem, but there's a general rule of thumb and general smartness to being able to price accurately with your audience. Online, I think that because online is so broad, your audience is everywhere, you have prices everywhere. I think it's better to make sure it's at a price that you're happy. So my general rule of thumb, 8 by 8s, anything smaller, bigger, nothing less than $10, please. If you're trying to build your brand, nothing less than $10. People can afford $10 for a print, especially if it's a really nice quality print. 5 by 7, still, I say still do it at $10. You're trying to build something there. And hopefully people who are buying are also investing in what you're selling, which means that they like the artwork. They like, what you're putting out there. You're not trying to sell yourself just to get the cheapest possible and the largest quantities of people buying it. Some people might buy it because it's cheap, yes, but I think $10 is already really cheap to begin with. So putting yourself at a range where you can actually build yourself, feel comfortable with the prices. They're not too high, they're not too low, and people buying it feel like it's a fair price. I think that's great. Um, Hold on, let me see. Yes, pricing in the US is absolutely much higher. So uh, relativity is very important. Right now, I'm talking about general US prices, unfortunately. I have friends who, sell at Comiket or sell at a lot of events at Singapore, Malaysia, where prices are actually a lot lower. So in those, I would say if it's a physical event, definitely see what other people are pricing at. Don't price at the lowest, price somewhere in the middle. See where the really good artists that are famous are pricing at. See where the artists just starting out are pricing at. Find something in between that you're comfortable with. Prints, though, I still don't think they should be $3 or $5, but that's just me. Um, and I am definitely have the point of view of selling at US events. If you're in the US, please don't sell your prints at $5. That's just I don't think you should do that, even if you're just starting out. For people saying $10 is a lot outside of the US, uh, I think yes, if you're at a physical event, price by what you think the range is. If you're online though, I don't, I feel like a lot of my online friends are seeing a lot of sales from all over the world. So if you're still only pricing to your location, your country, you kind I don't know if you should do that because if you can price for the world, why not price for the world, right? Um, I know it sounds daunting to say that, right? People are always really hesitant about pricing themselves a little bit higher, but I think once you price yourself higher, though, you know, like you're establishing yourself and people do come back, especially if you're taking into consideration your brand and your market. Let me see. Yeah, selling low undervalues a lot of what you do. And that is a huge problem in physical events is you see a lot of artists struggling because they keep selling too low. And you can break even selling low. but you can't get financial freedom selling low. We're not just trying to break even. We are trying to break even and establish yourself for the future so you can do whatever you want. That is the goal. Let's see. Originals, that, so someone's asking, how do you price originals? Originals is gonna depend on time. My rule of thumb is no cheaper than minimum wage. If someone is earning minimum wage, so this is where I don't know how it goes in a lot of international places, but in the US, minimum wage for a lot of places is $7 an hour. If you're selling your original for less than $7 an hour for how much you worked on it, you're way undercharging yourself. You shouldn't be selling your work for minimum wage, period. Yes. Also, another thing with selling low is people are cheap. Most people are cheap. If you sold low from the beginning, sometimes people have an issue when you raise your prices. Not everyone does, but I've had people where not personally for my stuff, but for friends who sold way too cheap and then raised the prices to something actually quite decent, they got a lot of flack for it. And it's like you can kind of avoid that by pricing yourself right from the beginning. Yes, low price items sometimes also make the item feel cheaper too. Minimum wage is Canada $15 an hour. Yes, you should absolutely adjust to that. You should adjust to minimum wage wherever you are. Um, I think minimum wage, what I'm saying there is just the base price, right? When people really don't know how to charge for their work. And a big eye opener is like, say someone sells a sketch for $25, right? Or they sell a full color for $25. I've seen that. I've seen full color for $25. And you're selling for, I'm pretty sure, less than minimum wage. Uh, Hold on, um, for how much it takes you to also get there. Because we also have to take into account how long did it take you to learn all this stuff? How long did it take you to get your skill levels to a place where you feel okay with putting it out there? Yeah, if you can do a full color in an hour, that means your skill level is very high. You should not be selling at $7 an hour. Um, yes, minimum wage is just a bare line. I really don't think anyone should be pricing that. If you're in Mexico and $5 USD a day is minimum wage, that's not okay. That's not okay. Let's try to price to the world. So if you're pricing to the world, I would say it's good to price for the US because everyone I've seen has been saying US prices are higher, and they are higher, but they're pretty standard in the US. So if you're looking at the world as a convention center, I guess, right? US has your really highs and your average costs. And you're looking at like maybe some places like when I was in Taiwan, they would have really, really low cost online stores. That's what I would consider like that's the bottom line. So try to find something in the middle. And for most people in the middle, I think that does still hit US prices. So $10 a print, $25 a poster, $3 to $5 a sticker sets. You can charge like $10 to $12, Okay. So my only thing with original, because I see some people starting to get into the discussion on originals, and I'm sorry that I have to be so broad with it because I'm trying to talk to people who are just starting out, and I don't always think it's possible to price an original at say $75 if you're just starting out because maybe your skill level isn't up there or maybe you don't really know how to sell your original yet. Um, I think it's good to start at a cost that you feel happy with. So maybe like $50 for something that you're quite proud of, and go from there and see your audience and see your range and see how that does for you. Um, yeah, I don't think $25 for an original is okay. If you're doing commission work, $25 for a sketch is real nice. If you're doing $25 for a full color, yeah, no, because you can do sketches, I'm assuming, uh, you can do a lot of sketches in an hour, right? So you're making more money with your time spent. You don't want to do an 8-hour day as if it's a real job on commissions. You want to make sure you can take commissions, profits, put in your quality work, put in your time, give them something they're happy with, and continue to establish yourself that way, because people now know you price yourself fairly because you respect yourself and you respect your work and you respect your time. You're actually putting thought into it because you're not rushing to just do commission after commission after commission, right? If you're doing commission after commission after commission, uh, I don't always think it works because, at least for me, I get burned out really quickly and my quality drops. And that's not something I want to do when people are paying for a nice quality commission. Uh, Range of 60, 80 for a piece done within an hour. How is that? That seems pretty fair. You should go into if it's full color, if it's just line art, you know, because you need to start, once you're comfortable with your rates, you should also start recording it as such. So, say you spent four hours on a drawing. You can start recording like, okay, I've sold this for this much for an hour. You can start doing, okay, so all my work costs $50 an hour. If you think that that piece of original took you like 3 hours, then you can price it at 150. It's just general rules, just to get everyone a basis. Some people start to realize like, okay, I don't want to do commissions for $100 an hour. I want to do it for more, and that's fine. You can raise them as you wish, but this is just general guidelines to get people started. Okay, let me see. Um, Making sure I've covered most of the stuff. Physical merchandise, events, starting out, merchandise, pricing, uh, breaking even at first events. Is $20 an hour starting out too much? I don't think so. Why not? Um, Let me make sure. Okay, so there are definitely a lot of discourse. I'm hoping I haven't overlooked too much. Um, but we are at only 20 minutes-ish left. So if you guys have any Q&As for me, let me know. I do think I glazed over some things a little bit and may have skipped a couple uh, sections, but I don't think we have time for that right now. Am I? Da, da, da. Ooh, so many. Crowdfunding as an option. Oh, okay. So crowdfunding is a very good option, especially for high risk merchandise. High risk merchandise to me is plush toys, is uh things that have more than like $1,000 out of pocket is high risk to me. I think I don't even think you really need a big following to do crowdfunding, because crowdfunding is also really great for getting exposure. I've seen people with less than 1,000 followers do successful campaigns for crowdfunding, as long as you're conscious also about your budget and how much you're asking of everyone. Like if you have less than 1,000 followers and you're asking for 20,000 for crowdfunding, this is a little high. That might be a little high. But if you're asking for 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, I think that's really doable. Um, do, do, do. Do I recommend making your own website or making Etsy? Actually, that's a very good question. I am so cheap when it comes to paying extra costs for selling your work. I don't like it because I want to make money. I want to make sure that I profit. So I don't like it when Etsy or I think Etsy or like other sites have a listing price. I don't think that's okay because it's like, why would I pay to list something when I'm already paying to use your website? So personally, I like to build my own websites. It just makes it easier. I can list however many products I want, and there's no backlash. I think even when you build your own website, though, there is always a fee for every transaction. That's normal, though. You do kind of want to do some research, figure out what the general transaction fees per item are. Do I like Society6 or Redbubble? I do not like Society6 or Redbubble because they take way too big of a portion from the artist. I don't think it's worth it. I know fulfillment centers, I know distribution centers, I know people who package and do your orders, and they don't even take as much as Society6 or Redbubble. Yeah, maybe they're saving you inconvenience, but I don't think the artist should only be getting like 20, 30% of their own product. That's not okay to me. That's not going to make you a lot of money. I know people use it because it's convenient. I know some artists who are really big and use it because they really don't have the time. I think that's a different case though, because they're getting like thousands of orders, right? That's pretty nice passive income if they don't have time to set up their own website, if they don't have time to go out and search for their own distributor. But of course, at the end of the day, they could be making more if they had their own website, if they had their own distributors, or but time is money for them. They don't have the time to do that. So in those cases, Society6 and Redbubble are a good option, right? For people starting out, I don't like you get so many options for merchandise on Society6 and Redbubble, but it really doesn't make you profit. I have friends who works went viral and they put it on Society6 and Redbubble and they sold like 200, 300s of like a shirt because it was like super popular. That's that's like if you're selling a shirt for $30, just putting out numbers in there, and you've sold 200 of it. Oh, I did this wrong. Da, da, da. That's $6,000. Okay, $6,000, and you take that and do 20%. Uh, see, that's $1,200 for 200 units sold. You could have got $6,000, but instead you got $1,200, which is not cool, in my opinion. You want to make sure that you have financial freedom. Again, it's not about just being happy to be there. It's about breaking even, financial freedom, so that you can do whatever you want and you're not held back by money. Yeah, it is a little bit ridiculous. They do take so much. And I remember that if you tried to up your royalties, if you tried to up the cost that you would get back, your prices went up, which is asking even more from your followers, your audience to put out. Gumroad, I think, is great. Gumroad is especially great for digital stuff. I didn't go into as much digital products because I personally don't do as much. But I think Gumroad is absolutely great for if you're selling brush sets, if you're selling tutorials. Those ones, I think lower pricing helps just because it's a digital package. It's not a physical package. You don't have as much production cost besides the time you put into it, right? So if you sell a brush set for $5, which I think is pretty fair, and you sell like so digital things always tend to sell a lot more, like brush packages. If you sell 1,000 of those brush sets, that's like $5,000. That's amazing. That's great. And you didn't have to like physically make anything. And it's exponential. You just keep it up there. You keep growing. Yes. So the good someone's mentioning here that Etsy does take care of the marketing for your products. If I remember correctly though, it's an extra fee to make your product searchable on Etsy. which I don't really like. The thing with making your own website is you have Google. You can actually do a SEO, I think is what it's called, where your website and you can put keywords and everything where your products will come up. If people search like say my deer cat plush and I say, okay, here's the tags that I want to put on it. It's uh deer cat plush, cute, kawaii plush, I don't know, indie artist. You can put like those tags, I'm pretty sure. And then when people look for it, it pops up on Google. Um, yes, ads. Etsy does charge you for the ad and takes a percentage of purchases made through the ad. And they take a percentage, they don't take a percentage, but it's an extra cost to be searchable on the market. That's a lot of costs. That's a ton of costs for someone just starting out. Shipping costs. Shipping costs will be very dependent on what your actual shipping costs are for your country. I use Pirate Ship. I don't know if they do international, like if they work internationally. I don't know because they're USPS, so I'm gonna assume no. But if you have websites or platforms that do shipping in your country, it's good to look them up and they usually can give you estimates. And the way it works with Pirate Ship and most, I think, shipping companies is there's a base weight. There's a base weight, there's a base dimension, and you can try to use that and see what you have to charge. I always charge just a little bit extra for shipping because I'm also taking into cost of the shipping products. Like for my deer cat, I can only ship those in boxes or large packages, so I have to take that into consideration. So deer cat on my store always has a slightly higher shipping cost. I don't think it's huge, but it's something you have to take into consideration because you don't want to start pulling out of your uh, product sales for shipping costs that you didn't take into account for. Once or twice is okay because you're just learning, but once you get it established and if you keep doing that, you're just pulling out of your profits. You're adding extra costs for yourself. Let me see. Okay, we have 4 minutes left. I'm so sorry if I didn't get to go over everything. I actually did want to go over something like finding out your audience and everything, but I don't think we have time for that right now. Um, I'm planning to do Twitch streams in the future for whatever, like not even just for Lightbox, but now that I have this set up and I actually know how to do this and use this, I'm going to try to hopefully do another talk. That way we can get a little bit more in depth on it because there's so much here that you can do. Um, will the stream be saved? Yes, the stream will be saved. Um, I'm going to try to upload it onto YouTube. If you guys need to review it, hopefully it wasn't too messy. This is my first time around for Twitch and first times. Uh, let me see. I am very glad that it was good and hopefully it was good information. I know it's really hard to market yourself, especially when there's so much out there telling you to price yourself lower. But please don't price yourself lower. Please respect yourself and your art. You're putting so much passion into it. It's only fair that you put that passion and respect into your prices as well. And also for establishing yourself, remember, we're not happy to be here. We are trying to thrive. We are trying to be financially independent. We are trying to establish ourselves for the future so that we do not have to fall into the stereotype of a struggling artist. Yes, and absolutely, I will do more branding in the future because we did not get to go too much into it. There's a lot that you can do for branding to make sure that your products stay in people's mind and that people think of you from the first time around, because that's what it is when you're putting yourself out there. You want people to think of you. Uh, yes, I think there will be a full version of this video on my main page. I don't know how it works on Twitch. We'll try to figure that out. Okay. I am going to exit the stream for now because I got I gotta go to another meeting. But I really hope this was helpful. I'm really sorry if we weren't able to cover everything that I thought we would be able to cover. There was so much. Um, yes, apparently there was a cat. So I will see you guys later. Hopefully, if you guys want to hear more about my journey to becoming a character designer, working in animation. I have a talk on Saturday. It's at 1 p.m. Pacific time, California time. Hopefully you guys can make it. Okay, goodbye guys.